Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications so you will not miss a future video.
Welcome to the channel, TheTechPianoPlayerKid.
A black background with white text that reads TheTechPianoPlayerKid displays on the screen with the same text written to the right in Braille. What's up, everyone? The Tech Piano Player Kid here, and welcome to Part 5 of Timecrest 3, Chapter 13. And we found out in the last video that there was another dragon attack, and we found out that it was Soul. Surprise, surprise. So, Scarlet is going to talk to GildMaster SonClaire and let her know about what happened and try to take the blame for Soul. But as we already know, I think we already have a feeling that GildMaster SonClaire is going to know that Soul did it anyway. And we don't really know why GildMaster SonClaire is... We really don't know why GildMaster SonClaire doesn't like Scarlet. I don't know if doesn't like is the right word, but she doesn't get along with Scarlet too well. And I don't know why. I'm very curious why. I have a guess what it could be, but at the same time, I don't know. So that's where we find out now. Scarlet is now in front of GildMaster SonClaire's office and see if GildMaster SonClaire will help Scarlet or if GildMaster SonClaire will just tell Scarlet to get out of her office and don't come back. All right, let's do this.
Close to the sun.
Description: the pocket watch clicked open. Description: Scarlet took her hand out of her cloak pocket. She is standing in front of GildMaster SonClaire's office. Description: in a shaky voice, Scarlet said, "Apparently GildMaster Gunda is out sick and the administrators don't know when he'll return to work. The only GildMaster I can... McDonald's. Now. The only GildMaster I can talk to right now is... ellipsis. GildMaster SonClaire." Description: Scarlet took a deep breath. Ellipsis. "I know I said earlier that I'd feel nervous if you were watching me. Ellipsis. But you know everything that went on between Rita, Soul and me. So, I'd feel better if you're here with me." Description: Scarlet swallowed hard. "Are you there?" System message: "Of course I'm here. Good. I have a bad feeling about this. I think it's waste of time talking to GildMaster SonClaire. She's not going to want to help you." 2 of 2 response. Descriptive: "I have a bad... Of course I'm here. Good luck, Scarlet. I hope GildMaster SonClaire agrees to help you." 1 of 2 responses. "I have a bad feeling about this. I think it's waste of time talking to GildMaster SonClaire. She's not going to want to help you." 2 of 2 responses. Button.
All right, let's hit that because I have a feeling as well.
Response. Description: Scarlet nodded with her brows furrowed. "That's probably true." Description: she took a deep breath. "But for my brother's sake, I still have to walk in there and ask." Description: Scarlet skulked as she knocked on GildMaster SonClaire's office door.
Why did the music pause?
"It's Scarlet, GildMaster SonClaire. The administrator told me you agreed to meet with me. May I come in?" Description: GildMaster SonClaire's stern voice came from the other side. She said, "Come in." Description: Scarlet felt for the doorknob, her palms moist. She entered into the office. Description: GildMaster SonClaire narrowed her eyes at Scarlet. Description: before Scarlet could open her mouth to speak, GildMaster SonClaire said, "The only reason I agreed to see you is to have you tell me again, to my face, that you don't know anything about the dead ruby dragon egg and who brought it near our guild." Description: Scarlet swallowed hard. "I'm sorry, but I don't know anything about the dragon egg, GildMaster SonClaire." Description: GildMaster SonClaire laced her fingers together and stared at Scarlet coldly. She said, "It's your brother, isn't it?" Description: a shiver went down Scarlet's spine. "And no, my brother knows nothing about it either. He would..." Description: GildMaster SonClaire took a deep breath. She said, "You're lying. Your brother was the first one to And no,
Wait,
my
hang on.
brother knows nothing about it either. He would tell you if he did." Description: GildMaster SonClaire took a deep breath. She said, "You're lying. Your brother was the first one to run up to us after the dragon flew away. And he sounded nervous when I was telling everyone that I'm going to investigate this."
Oh, I did she? No.
Description: GildMaster SonClaire sighed and said, "And I can see reasons why both you and my daughter would want to cover up for him." Description: GildMaster SonClaire shook her head. She said, "I'm giving you a chance to come clean, Scarlet." Description: GildMaster SonClaire said, "That attack has left Icona Guild crippled, with only me as a guildmaster. GildMaster Newman is removed." Description: GildMaster SonClaire squawked with a little shake of her head as she said, "And GildMaster Gunder can't get over the stress of what happened." Description: GildMaster SonClaire said, "But the most important loss that day were the lives of many of your guildmates." Description: GildMaster SonClaire said, "Now some families have to live without their mothers." What's up? Description: GildMaster SonClaire said, "Now some families have to live without their mothers, or fathers, or siblings or children." The youngest who died was only 16.
Oh my gosh. What?
Description, Scarlet cringed. Description, GildMaster SonClaire said, I rather spend my time comforting those grieving families than investigating the imbecile who caused the mess because I don't think he's worth my time. Description, GildMaster SonClaire said, tell your brother to confess the truth to me. If he does that, then I'll only expel him from my Kana guild. Description, GildMaster SonClaire said, I won't pursue his arrest with the Master's Council for gross guild misconduct. Description, Scarlet looks torn. Description, the room fell silent. Description, Scarlet took a deep breath. My brother doesn't know anything about the ruby dragon egg, GildMaster SonClaire. Description, GildMaster SonClaire looks exasperated. She pinched the bridge of her nose and said, I'm giving you one last chance to tell the truth, Scarlet. Description, GildMaster SonClaire said, it was your brother, wasn't it? Soul was responsible for bringing the ruby dragon down on our heads. Description, Scarlet licked her lips. They were very dry. Description, Scarlet tugged at her cloak, feeling it was very tight around her. Soul. Description, Scarlet's voice is squeaky. Soul doesn't know anything about where I'm the one who brought the egg near our guild. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Description, GildMaster SonClaire shook her head and said, I see you're determined to make this hard for me. Description, GildMaster SonClaire said, I gave you a chance to do right, Scarlet, but now you're just as guilty as your brother for hiding the truth. I'm the one at fault, GildMaster SonClaire. Description, GildMaster SonClaire paused. She smirked and said, you should know I discovered something was coated around the dragon egg. It'll take some time, but I'll figure out what the coating was. Description, GildMaster SonClaire said, and when I get to the bottom of it, I'll make sure whoever is responsible is not only expelled, but punished to the maximum extent of Valencian law. Description, GildMaster SonClaire said, your brother is walking out there right now, knowing he caused the ruby dragon attack that led to the deaths of so many of his guildmates. Description, GildMaster SonClaire said, I can't, in all good conscience, just let a monster like him walk freely after what he's done. Description, GildMaster SonClaire paused. She said, I never thought you were competent, Scarlet, but I did think you were a good person. Description, GildMaster SonClaire said, if you weren't a mage, I wouldn't have been against you being Rita's friend. As long as you don't put her in harm's way. Description, GildMaster SonClaire said, I gave you a chance just now to be the good person I thought you were, Scarlet. Description,
Oh no.
GildMaster SonClaire said, but now I see you for who you really are, a liar and a misguided, ugly soul with no morality.
Okay, dude.
Description, GildMaster SonClaire said, a good person would help me lock up a monster like Soul Ignis because he will hurt people again. Description, in a harsh tone, GildMaster SonClaire said, get out. I never want to see you or your brother again. Description, Scarlet turned around quickly. She searched for the doorknob, her hands trembling. Description, GildMaster SonClaire said, get out. Description, Scarlet's hand finally touched the knob. She ripped the door open, got out and shut it behind her. Description, Scarlet walked away from the office. She staggered from side to side, seemingly unbalanced. Description, she is shaking horribly. System message, Scarlet, you're not an ugly soul. You're just someone who's trying to protect her family. 1 of 3 response. I hope GildMaster SonClaire's words got through to you. Your brother is bad news. 2 of 3 say nothing. Scarlet, you're not an ugly soul. You're just someone who's trying to protect. Scarlet, you're not an ugly soul. Response. Description, Scarlet continued to shake. Description, she took out the pocket watch from her pocket.
She's gonna close it.
Description, with shaking hands, Scarlet closed the watch. System, 19 minutes 50. Skip timer for 1 skip crystal. You have 0 skip crystals remaining. Button.
How many?
2 back. Chat. The current year is 1,004 at 970 time crystals. Buy more time crystal. 19 minutes 19. Skip timer for 1 skip crystal.
Sorry, guys, that was my Apple TV in the background.
You do not can't buy more.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy
Quantity.
some.
Skip close. Skip quant price. 600. Purchase 1. Purchase 1. Skip. Purchase 1. Alert. Buy.
Bye.
Alert. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Price. Night. System message. Skip timer for 1.
Here we go.
Responded. Description. Scarlet continued to shake. Description. With shaking. System. Description. The pocket watch clicked open. Description. Scarlet held the pocket watch in her hand as she slumped into a comfy foam sofa chair lined neatly against the wall. Description. The room is dimly lit. Description. The room is dimly lit. The only light came from open windows that let in more afternoon earthen light. Description. The walls and flooring of the room are made of a sturdy, dense foam. The foam gave off a light and comforting scent. Description. Other people are sitting in the room with Scarlet. No one has their shoes on. Description. 2 men are chatting across the room. One of them stood up and, sweeping his cane in front of him, made his way to a sturdy foam rectangle in the middle of the room.
Oh, he's also blind.
Description. As he walked, a bell clip to his clothing chimed. Description. The man got a small paper plate and filled it with some snacks before making his way back to his friend. He took a seat and started chatting again. Description: aside from the entrance door, there are 4 other doors in this waiting area that are currently closed. Description: Scarlet cupped the watch with both her hands on her lap, looking distraught. Her face.
Whoops.
Description: Scarlet cupped the watch with both her hands on her lap, looking distraught. Her face is red and her eyes are puffy. Description: as she shifted in her seat, the bell that Scarlet had clipped to her cloak chimed.
What?
Hi again. Description: as she shifted in her seat, the bell that Scarlet had clipped to her cloak chimed. Characters: words.
Wait.
As she shifted in her seat, the bell that Scarlet had clipped to her cloak chimed.
What?
Hi again. Description: Scarlet rubbed one finger underneath her nose before pushing a loose strand of hair out of her face. I think my brother's in real trouble. It's only a matter of time before GildMaster SonClaire finds out the truth about the dead ruby dragon egg. System message: hey, Scarlet. I just want to let you know I'm here for you. 1 of 3 response. I hope she does. Soul's mistake cost lives and I think he should be held accountable. Messenger: what is this place? 3 of 3. I hope she does. Soul's mistake cost lives and I think he should be held accountable for it. 2 of 3 response back. Button. Back. New game. Continue. Settings.
Let's save it.
To sign into game center icon. Last save. Save game. Save game. Save. Success. Okay. But if music follows,
Go back.
Continue. Continue. What is this? What is this play? Descriptive. What? I hope she does. I hope she does. Soul's mistake. Description: Scarlet covered her mouth with one hand. She shook her head. What you're saying makes sense, but I still want Soul to have a happy life. Description: Scarlet looks troubled. Yeah, that's all I want. For him to. Yeah, that's all I want. For him to be happy. Description: one of the closed foam doors in the room opened and a teen stepped out. Description: with his back towards the waiting area, the teen said, Bye, Master Geda. Can't wait until the next N. Jab tome. Description: an elderly woman's voice can be heard saying, You're very welcome, Yadin. Description: Yadin stretched his cane out and made his way towards the entrance. Scarlet pulled her feet in as the sound of Yadin's bell got closer to her. Messages: now, 34. Description: at the entrance, Yadin took off his bell and returned it to a container attached to the back of the front door containing lots of clip-on bells. Description: he then moved over to the rows of evenly spaced foam blocks attached to the wall that held pairs of shoes. Each shoe block had a different raised foam design on the front. Description: Yadin felt the design before taking a pair of shoes off the block. Description: Master Geda said, Scarlet did this? Description: Scarlet placed the watch in her cloak pocket, stood up and said, Here. Description: Scarlet walked into the room that Yadin had come out of. Description: she felt for the long handle attached to the foam door and dragged the door close. As soon as the foam door closed, the chatter from the people outside disappeared. Description: a window in the room let in fresh air and showed the quiet streets outside. Description: Scarlet sat down as Master Geda said, You have requested to hear about ruby dragons, right, Scarlet? Yes. More specifically, I'd like to know how I can defeat a ruby dragon. But any details can help. Description: Master Geda said, It would help to know what you know so far. I know dragons can sense where their eggs are and a ruby dragon can be hurt by its own flames. Description: Master Geda nodded and said, A dragon is made mostly of aura. Their vast magical potential was the main reason people hunted them so fiercely in the past. Description: Master Geda said, people who weren't necessarily mage material even found that they were able to draw spells. Description: Master Geda said, people who weren't necessarily mage material even found that they were able to draw spells from dragon scales, or their eggs especially. Description: Master Geda spoke in a clear and even tone. Description: Master Geda said, many people died hunting dragons, but it did not stop them because successfully killing a dragon could mean a lifetime worth of wealth and magical powers. Description: Master Geda said, dragon hunters learned the hard way that dragons could track their eggs when that knowledge wasn't widely known in the earlier days of dragon hunting. Description: Master Geda said, hunters would stalk dragon roosts until the dragon left before they go inside and steal its eggs. But the eggs weren't truly theirs until they could defeat a dragon.
Oh.
Description: Master Geda said, and the dragons would always come looking for their eggs to a hunter's dismay. Description: Master Geda said, but later, the hunters used the trait of a dragon to their advantage. Description: Master Geda said, dragon roosts are typically enclosed spaces that aren't great for fighting. So hunters would end up stealing an egg to lure the dragon to a more advantageous arena for themselves where they have already set up traps. Description: Master Geda said, but even though the hunters gave themselves advantages, beating a dragon was still no easy featuring. Each dragon type had strong battle abilities. Description: Master Geda said, a dragon's scale is very resistant against most weapons and magic. Description: Master Geda said,
Jeez.
ruby dragons in particular have an ability that allows it to heat its entire body and wings to such a high temperature that pretty much any weapon that came in contact with it would melt instantly.
Yikes.
Description: Master Geda said, so the many arrows people used to pierce its wings were rendered useless. Description: Master Geda said, in the beginning, sinkhole traps had a lot of success killing a ruby dragon and other types too. The sinkhole would be covered in the egg placed on top of it. Description: Master Geda said, unsuspecting dragons would land to recover its egg and then fall into the sinkhole. Description: Master Geda said, hunters would quickly pile more and more things on top of the sinkhole and hope that the dragon suffocates before it could push its way out.
That didn't work.
Description: Master Geda said, but later dragons learned not to land when picking up its egg. Description:
Of course.
Master Geda said, a ruby dragon's egg is even resistant to its own flames, so after many ruby dragons died to sinkholes, ruby dragons learned to breathe down fire of the area where their egg is located first. Description: Master Geda said, when they have scorched the ground and all the hunters hiding nearby, the dragon would pick up their egg without ever touching the ground. Description: Master Geda said, when dragons started avoiding sinkholes, hunters went back to launching all sorts of weapons and magic at the dragon. Description: Master Geda said, when that didn't work out, hunters thought that maybe surrounding a dragon in a suffocating barrier would work better than hitting the creature directly with magic. Description: Master Geda said, but dragons are filled with aura and have more magical potential than most people. All a ruby dragon had to do was breathe fire to break the barrier and burn the hunters below.
Yikes.
Description: Master Geda said, the one magic that a ruby dragon is vulnerable to is its own flame. Description: Master Geda said, hunters who could use a ruby dragon's flame back at it had the highest chance of killing the dragon. Description: Master Geda said, so reflect magic became the most popular way to defeat a ruby dragon. Description: Master Geda said, but even so, many hunters got overpowered when trying to reflect a dragon's magic. Description: Master Geda sighed and said, I know you're searching for a way to defeat a ruby dragon, but other than what I told you, I'm afraid I don't have more specifics for you. I see, ellipsis. Any more details you have on ruby dragons, Master Geda? Description: Master Geda nodded and said, even though dragons look big, they are one of the lightest creatures in Valencia compared to how big it appears.
Huh.
Description: Master Geda said, the average dragon weighs in at 350 pounds with a wingspan of 100 meters long.
Oh, wow.
Wow, ellipsis. I didn't realize dragons are so light, ellipsis. Description: Master Geda said, it helps that even their bones are mostly hollow and filled with aura. Description: Master Geda said, though each time a dragon attacks, it must come lower to the ground until it can recharge its aura. Description: Scarlet touched her lips. Oh, that sounds interesting. So each time a ruby dragon breathes fire it has to come closer to the ground? Description: Master Geda said, yes, because the aura inside a dragon helps it fly. The massive wingspan and light weight of a dragon helps too, but often its wings still can't carry a dragon's weight alone for sustained flight. Oh, I have a spell that allows me to sense things that are touching the ground. This gives me hope that maybe I'll be able to sense the ruby dragon if I ever fight one. Description: Master Geda said, yes, if you can force the dragon to deplete its aura, it will have to land. Description: Master Geda said, but dragons are careful not to overuse their spells. If they don't feel safe coming near the ground, then they will retreat back into the clouds and recharge their aura. I see, ellipsis. Description: Master Geda said, and remember, a ruby dragon's scales will still give it natural defense against weapons and magic. Description: Scarlet took a deep breath. Okay, any other details you can tell me, Master Geda? Description: Master Geda said, I'm afraid that's all. Since you set up this appointment in advance, I had time to speak with the other masters here. Description: Master Geda said, even though I'm the one in charge of memorizing informational tomes about Valencia, I was hoping the other masters might have some knowledge about ruby dragons stored in their minds too. Description: Master Geda said, but unfortunately this is all. Description: Scarlet shook her head. You've been very helpful, Master Geda. I never knew dragon's flight is dependent on how much aura it has. While that may not tell me how to defeat a dragon, it might help me sense a dragon when I'm trying to fight it if I can find a way to get it to deplete its aura and land.
Ooh, I think I got a mosquito bite.
Description: Master Geda smiled and clapped her hands together. She said, well, I'm glad you found the information useful, Scarlet. System message: I'm enjoying learning more about dragons. Thanks for sharing this with me, Scarlet. 1 of 3 response. Just for comparison, how much does a griffin weigh? 2. Say nothing. I'm enjoying learning more about dragons. I'm enjoying learning more about dragons. Thanks for sharing. Responded. Description: Scarlet touched the watch in her pocket with a smile. Thank you, Master Geda. Description: Master Geda smiled and said, you're welcome, Scarlet. Description: Scarlet got up. At the door, she felt around in her pouch for 100 gold coins and placed them in a box next to the door. Description: the coins clinked against other coins already in the box. Master Geda said, sounds like a very generous donation, Scarlet. I didn't even recall a tome for you. I know more about ruby dragons now than I did walking in, so you were very helpful, Master Geda. Thank you. Description: Master Geda said, you're welcome, Scarlet. Come again soon. Description: Scarlet pulled open the door and walked out. Her Description: Scarlet pulled open the door and walked out. Her socks are glowing red. Description: she walked over to the entrance door and unclipped her bell, placing it back with the other bells. Description: she went over to the shoe block, found her shoes and put them on. Okay, time to go home. I hope Soul is home already, ellipsis. Description, Scarlet took out a teleport orb. System message, Scarlet is teleport. Description, Scarlet phased onto a receiving teleportation glyph in a courtyard surrounded by multi-story buildings. Description, lots of well-kept greenery and Valdorian flags decorated the courtyard and the area around the Valdorian living complex. Okay, Scarlet, if Soul's home, you have to convince him to tell GildMaster SonClaire the truth about the dragon egg. Description, Scarlet took a deep breath. Her palms are already sweaty. GildMaster SonClaire said that if Soul confesses to her, then she will only expel him and not pursue his arrest. Soul's not going to like getting expelled, but you have to make him see that being expelled is better than being locked up by the Master's Council. He could lose his freedom for years or life depending on their verdict. Ellipsis. Description, Scarlet walked over to one of the buildings. The building she walked towards had a restaurant with an outside eating area on the bottom floor. Description, Scarlet walked up the flight of stairs that wrapped around the side of the building. She took each step slowly, with a nervous expression on her face. Description, on the second level, Scarlet walked past a Description, on the second level. Description, on the second level, Scarlet walked past a grocery store and merchant shop. Description, each floor after the grocery store and merchant shop had 4 doors before another flight of stairs going up another level. System message, Scarlet is waiting. Good luck with Soul, Scarlet. Hope he does the right thing. One of 3 What kind of restaurant do you have on the bot? Your building has a grocery store and a merchant shop? How convenient. Is the merchant shop part of the Ormhella Merchants Union? 3. Good luck with Soul, Scarlet. Hope he does the right thing. Good luck with Soul, Scarlet. Description, Scarlet sighed. I wish GildMaster SonClaire just punished me instead. Description, on the 5th floor, she stopped in front of one of the doors. She took a deep breath before opening it and stepping inside. Soul, ellipsis, I'm home. Are you here? Description, Soul is sitting at the dining room table reading a tome called Reflect Spells for Fire Mages. Description, he had a confused and frustrated look on his face. Description, Soul did not greet Scarlet. When she came in, he lifted his feet and sat cross-legged on his chair as Scarlet's sensory radius went underneath him. Brother? Are you home? Description, Soul still didn't answer. Scarlet neared the dining room table. Brother, ellipsis, I can hear you breathing. My cue. Description, all Scarlet received back was a moody grunt. My cue. You're still mad at me, aren't you, brother? Description, Soul didn't reply. Scarlet sighed. I'm so sorry I said I was disappointed in you. Please talk to me, brother. Description, with an annoyed look, Soul slammed his tome shut and shouted, I just still can't believe you chose Rita over me. Description, Soul tossed the tome onto the table and said, my blood boils every time I think about it, Scar. Description, Scarlet shook her head. I wasn't thinking straight, brother. Please, I wasn't thinking straight, brother. Please forgive me. Please. Description, Soul crossed his arms and looked away from his sister. He said, why should I forgive you when it's clear I don't mean as much to you as you do to me? Description, Scarlet looks pained. She swallowed hard. She covered her mouth and started to cry. Description, Soul eyed his sister. He scratched his face and shook his head. He said, I want to forgive you, Scar, but how? What? Description, Soul eyed his sister. He scratched his face and shook his head. He said, I want to forgive you, Scar, but how can I be sure that you won't choose Rita over me again? Description, Scarlet wiped her eyes and sniffled. I won't. I will always be on your side. Description, Soul took a deep breath. He lowered his feet back onto the ground and said, what were you up to today? Description, Scarlet's face brightened. I went to see a master memorizer today, brother. It seems YouTube. It seems like Reflect Magic is the best way to defeat a ruby dragon. Description, Soul sighed and said, I know that already. Anything else? Dragons are very lightweight because their whole body is made up of aura. The aura helps them fly, so if a ruby dragon uses up too much of its aura attacking, it has to lower itself from the sky. Description, Soul shrugged and said, so what? Well, I was thinking that if we force the ruby dragon to land then I can sense it. Description, Soul sighed again. He said, and what good would that do when you don't have any spells to defeat it with? Description, Scarlet sighed too and nodded. She leaned forward on the table and propped her chin up with one hand. Yeah, you're right. Have you learned anything we can use to defeat the dragon with, brother? I know you've been working hard to read up on them. Description, Soul gave his blank notebook an exasperated look. He said, I'm just getting started. Description, Soul said, but I already spoke with the golds in charge of the recruiting event and got myself a presentation spot. Description, Soul said, I need you to pass out flyers with me today, Scar. The more people that come the better for me when I take down that ruby dragon. Description, Soul rubbed his hands together. With a big grin, he said, in just a few months, Soul Ignis will be famous. Description, Scarlet furrowed her brows. Yeah, I'll definitely help with the flyers, but there's something I need to tell you, brother. Description, Soul looks excited for a moment. He said, did Rita say something about me?
Nope.
Description, Scarlet swallowed hard. Ellipsis, no, I haven't spoken to Rita since the ruby dragon attack. Description, Soul lowered his gaze, a bummed expression on his face. He reached into his cloak and pulled out a photo. Description: it showed a young girl who resembled GildMaster SonClaire with another older girl. Description: Soul said, well, if you see her, you should tell her that I have the photo of her aunt. Description: Scarlet looks surprised. Where did you get the photo, Soul? Description: Soul shook his head and said, I found it in the sand. I think she dropped it when she went running off after the dragon egg. Description: Soul said, you need to go tell her I have it. Huh? Me? Description: Scarlet looks nervous and shook her head. I don't think she wants to talk to me. Description: Soul said, I guess she's not going to get this photo back then because I'm not going to her. She needs to come to me after what happened. Soul, ellipsis. I don't think Rita wants to see either of us. But that photo is important to her. Rita may never see her aunt again. And she's always been grateful to her aunt for lying to the Valdorians about her relationship with GildMaster SonClaire. Otherwise, they could all be stuck in a quarantine zone right now. Description: Soul said, that's what I'm saying. If Rita was smart, she would have destroyed this photo a long time ago like I asked. Description: Soul said, they got lucky that her aunt doesn't look anything like her mom.
Oof.
Description: Soul said, her aunt was stupid and got caught by Valdorians. Description: Soul said, I told Rita that if she doesn't want to end up the same, she needs to destroy this photo and any other memorabilia they have lying around linking them to their human lineage. Description: Soul frowned at the photo and said, but it's clear Rita didn't listen to my good advice. Well, ellipsis, GildMaster SonClaire is very grateful to her sister too, for lying to the Valdorians so she and Rita could still be free. And she wanted to teach Rita to be proud of who she is and who her family is even if they have to hide their identity from others. Description: Soul sighed and said, I bet Rita is engaged to a human. Description: Soul said, her mom is too proud and too stupid to want to give up their human lineage even in times like this. Description: Soul shook his head. He said, I don't know why I'm wasting my breath on this. Description: heard in his voice, Soul said, it's not my job to protect her anymore. Description: Scarlet furrowed her brows. What are you going to do with the photo, Soul? Description: Soul said, part of me wants to make her worry when she realizes she lost it. Soul, ellipsis. Description: Soul said, but the biggest part of me wants nothing to do with her or her family anymore. Description: Soul put the photo back into his cloak pocket and said, I'm just going to slip this under the door of her house when her and her mom are out. Description: Scarlet nodded with a smile. System message: Scarlet is, breakups are tough and it seems like your brother did care about Rita. I hope his heart will heal. 1 of 4 what does Rita's head look like? Maybe you should hang on to the photo, Scarlet. Saying nothing, maybe you should hang on to the photo, Scarlet. What if Soul doesn't give it back? 3 of 4. Breakups are tough and it seems like your brother did care. Breakups are tough and it seems like your brother. Response. Description: Scarlet nodded, an appreciative expression on her face. Soul, ellipsis. How are you doing? Description: Soul shrugged and said, fine. Description: he swallowed hard and sounded like he had a lump in his throat when he said fine. Description: Scarlet paused, before she smiled. Description: in a gentle tone, she said, you will be fine, brother. I know you cared for Rita a lot and you must feel so disappointed right now, but you will get through this tough time. I know you will. Description: Soul took a deep breath. He said, thanks for being on my side, Scar. Of course, always. Description: Soul said, so what were you going to tell me? Ellipsis. Description: Scarlet's voice is unsteady. Ellipsis, spoke with GildMaster SonClaire today, ellipsis. Description: Soul's grin faded. He said, you what? What were you doing speaking to the enemy?
Wait,
Description: Soul's grin faded. I
Oh.
didn't want to speak with GildMaster SonClaire. I was hoping to speak with GildMaster Gunder, but he was out sick. I was trying to find out more about the reflect spell the Guildmasters used against the Ruby Dragon for us. Description: Soul smirked and said, you mean the reflect spell that failed to defeat the dragon? Soul, GildMaster SonClaire is convinced that you're the one who brought the dead Ruby Dragon egg near our guild. Description: Soul's smirk faded. And when she finds proof, she's going to expel you and get you arrested by the Master's Council. Description: Soul's jaw dropped. He shouted, what? Is she crazy? It was an accident. I didn't know the coating of the egg was going to kill it. Description: Soul slammed his fist on the table and said, and the jerk who sold me the egg is the one responsible for everything. I know, brother. I know it was an accident. I think GildMaster SonClaire will understand if you explain that to her. She told me that, if you confess to her, she'll only expel you from the guild rather than trying to get you arrested. Description: Soul narrowed his eyes at Scarlet and said, you didn't tell that old the Ruby Dragon egg was mine, did you? Of course not. In fact, I tried to tell her it was me. Description: Soul said, why did you try to do that, Scar? Neither of us are at fault. It was Soul. She said she knows the dragon egg was coated with something and that she will get to the bottom of it if you don't confess. Description: Soul said, well, I couldn't get expelled from the guild. I don't want something like that to tarnish my reputation. Description: Soul scratched the back of his neck. He said, that old is forcing my hand. What do you mean? Description: Soul said, isn't it obvious? Now I have to find the jerk who sold me the egg on top of everything else I have to do for the recruiting event.
I had to block out that word again, guys. Sorry.
Description, Soul said, without him, the old will have zero proof I had anything to do with that dragon egg.
And there goes again.
Soul, ellipsis.
It's not like a cuss word. It's not a nice word. That's why I blocked it out, guys. It's not a cuss word. It's just not a very nice word.
Description, Scarlet swallowed hard. Please don't kill the exceller. This won't be an official guild-regulated killing, so you would be wanted for murder if you got caught, ellipsis. Description, Soul leaned back in his chair and said, I'm not stupid. I'm not going to suffer more because of that jerk. What are you going to do then? Description, Soul said, I'm thinking. Do you need help with anything? Description, Soul leaned back in his chair and said, I'll take care of this one. You just help put up flyers for the recruiting event. Description, Soul pushed himself away from the table. Description, he said, come on. Let's go tell everyone in this complex about the iconic guild recruiting event. Description, Scarlet looks troubled. Description, Soul growled and said, did you hear me, Scar? Or are you thinking of taking the old side? Description, Scarlet shook her head. No, just let me get a quick shower in and we can go hand out flyers. Description, Soul said, make it real quick. Description, Scarlet got up from the table and headed towards the bathroom. She reached into her pocket and closed the watch. System message, 23 hours. Skip timer for 1 skip crystal. You have 0 skip crystals remaining.
Well, this is what I don't like about these things. Like, yeah. All right, guys. Let me see if I can somehow get some skip crystals, and then we'll go forward from there.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
All right, guys. I got one more time crystal. Skip crystal.
Skip time. Vertical. Skip
So-
timer. Skip timer for 1 skip crystal. Description. Back. Chapter 13. Description. Scarlet got up from the table and headed toward. Description. A couple days passed.
Whoa.
Description. Scarlet is sitting inside the armor room of the Voldorian quarantine zone. She has dark circles under her eyes and is looking very tired. Description. The letter box that Luther gave her is open on the table next to her. Description. She set the pocket watch to her side as she held a piece of paper that had words cut into it. I think Luther wrote me a letter. When I opened the letter box to put the pocket watch inside, I found this piece of paper. Description. Heat spread through Scarlet's hand and warmed up the paper. Description. The letter read, Hi Scarlet, I remember the notes you took when I told you about Alvin. Hope you're able to read these cutouts I made even though I was pretty clumsy with the scissors. Description. Scarlet smiled and she touched her lips with her fingers. Luther, ellipsis. Description. She continued to read. Princess Riley gave me some information on how to defeat a ruby dragon. High Mage Valelator told her that the best ruby dragon hunter absorbed the dragon's fire and reflected it back at the beast using an Ultimus level spell called Flame Master. The hunter obtained Flame Master by holding his palm over an open flame and maintaining a trance despite pain from the heat. At first, he practiced with a candle before moving on to larger flames. The process of learning this spell left him with burn scars, but Flame Master made him unequivocally the best ruby dragon hunter. He was even offered the position of Master of Fire, but he declined. When other hunters saw his power, they wanted to know how he learned the spell, to which he told everyone very openly. But even with this knowledge, other hunters had trouble learning the spell themselves. Most couldn't develop a connection to an open flame and others couldn't withstand the pain while maintaining a trance. Flame Master seems to require a painful training method without a high chance you will learn a spell, but I wanted to share with you what I learned in case it might be of use to you. You're welcome to visit me if you want to talk more about this. Hope you and my counterpart are doing well, Scarlet. Description. Scarlet covered her mouth. Luther asked Princess Riley about ruby dragons for me, ellipsis. I hope she decided to help him out with a memory deletion serum too. Description. Scarlet placed the letter carefully on the table and picked up an empty name card from the table with cleaning supplies. Incendiatos Magnus, precision point. Description. Scarlet's fingertip glowed red. Description. She picked up a few empty name cards. Using several name cards, she wrote out, Thank you so much for your letter, Luther. It helps a lot. If you're not busy, can I visit you today? I have some questions too. Description. Scarlet paused and shook her head. I'm sure Luther's just being nice when he says he welcomes my visits. I'm sure he's sick of hearing my problems.
No.
It's not like he doesn't have bigger problems of his own, ellipsis. My cue. It's not like he doesn't have bigger problems of his own, ellipsis, that I can't really help him with. Description. Scarlet ran her fingers over Luther's letter on the table. A smile spread across her face. Luther's description. Scarlet ran her fingers over Luther's letter on the table. A smile spread across her face. Scarlet looked happy for a long moment before sighing. Luther's done enough for me. I have all the information I need in this letter to start practicing this dragon hunter's method. I shouldn't bother him with my stupid questions. I should focus on my work today so I can go home and start practicing with a candle. System message. It's clear to me you want to see Luther. If you need an excuse, you can tell him I want to see him. 1 of 4 are you talking to me? 2 of 4 what questions do you have? 3 of 4 say nothing. It's clear to me you want to see Luther. If you need an excuse, you can tell him I want to see him. 1 of 4 responses. Button. It's clear to me you want to see Luther. If you need an description, Scarlet blushed and touched her lips with a finger. I appreciate the offer, but, ellipsis. If Luther wanted to see me, ellipsis, he probably wouldn't have written me a letter. My work schedule is posted on the door so he could just come visit if, ellipsis, he wanted. Description, Scarlet picked up some empty name cards. Using several name cards, she wrote out, "Hi Luther, I hope you're well too. Thank you for your letter, it gives me so much hope, but please don't worry about me anymore. You've done enough for me already." Description, Scarlet placed the name cards into the letter box along with the pocket watch. "Sending you to Luther is the least I could do for him right now. Talk to you again when you come back." Description, Scarlet closed the letter box. System message, the watch is teleporting. System message, connection lost. 19 minutes 56, skip timer for 1 skip crystal. You have 0 skip.
Okay. Now I have to wait because it's 19 minutes, so that shouldn't be too long. It'll come quickly, so I'll be back.
Later.
Alright guys, I am back. And let's do this.
System message, connection lost. Description, the letter box opened. Description, Luther quickly took out the watch and Scarlet's name cards, placing them into his jacket pocket without looking at them. Description, Luther is sitting in his lab. A bunch of Voldorian guards are walking around and inspecting every inch of the lab. Description, High Mage Val Luther is poking and prodding at a pouch Luther had on display. He said, "How much progress have you made with the infinity pouch?" Description, Luther said, "I'm actually stumped. Right now, items larger than the pouch won't fit into it, and after 4 items, the pouch can't maintain its size." Description, Luther said, "The pouch is mildly useful, but it's far from living up to its name of infinity pouch." Description, Val Luther rubbed his chin and said, "Finally, something has stumped you, Luther." Description, with a smirk, Val Luther said, "You know I was wrong about something, Luther." Description, the High Mage turned to face Luther. He eyed Luther over the bridge of his nose and said, "At the mage trials, I said that this world is not made for you. I didn't think it had a place for someone like you." Description, Val Luther said, "But I was wrong. You found a place in it after all, as a bag maker." Description, Val Luther chuckled to himself a little. Description, in a calm tone, Luther said, "I see a lot of potential in the infinity pouch, so thank you for letting me work on it." Description, Val Luther said, "Some of my colleagues were worried about letting you keep this lab, especially after you broke the rules with Model 1.
Ew, that's why.
Description, Val Luther rubbed his chin. He said, "Actually, now that I think about it, that vile robot wanted me to tell you something before I destroyed it." Description, Val Luther said, "But it wasn't anything important, so I didn't bother to remember." Description, Luther dug a nail into his palm. Description, Val Luther said, "My colleagues had doubts, but I knew I could tame you for the benefit of Volder, Luther." Description, Val Luther continued to smirk. He said, "Your infinity pouch will make great profits for Volder when it's done. As long as you continue to do your part in strengthening Volder, I'll make sure you get to keep your little lab." Description, the High Mage said, "Besides, I'm sure you will just cause all sorts of trouble if I don't keep you busy." Description, Val Luther said, "I'll give you 10 more days to solve those 2 problems that are stumping you." Description, Val Luther's voice sounded smug as he said, "But I will say, the pace you've been progressing at for the infinity pouch is rather disappointing. I hope you haven't lost your touch, Luther." Description, Luther's expression is unreadable. He said, "I'll try my best, High Mage."
I don't know. High Mage Val Elder is interesting.
Description, Val Luther held up a pouch in his hand and said, "I'll be taking this one to update the Master's Council." Description, Luther said, "Be my guest. Everything here belongs to Volder." Description, Val Luther looks deeply satisfied with Luther's statement. Description, a Voldorian guard came over to Luther's desk and started examining all the drawers. Luther dug a nail into his palm as the guard opened the letter box. Description, the guard closed the lid after seeing nothing inside the box. He and other guards nodded at each other. Description, the guard said, "High Mage Val Luther, we have finished inspecting the lab." Description, High Mage Val Luther nodded and said, "Until next time, Luther." Description, Val Luther and the guards exited Luther's lab. Description, Luther took out the pocket watch and Scarlet's name cards. Description, he glanced at the name cards and read, "Hi Luther, I hope you're well too. Thank you for your letter, it gives me so much hope, but please don't worry about me anymore. You've done enough, YouTube. Now, Afmouth." Description, he glanced at the name cards and read, "Hi Luther, I hope you're well too. Thank you for your letter, it gives me so much hope, but please don't worry about me anymore. You've done enough for me already." Description, Luther said, "I'm glad Scarlet managed to read the cutouts I made." Description, Luther put the name cards down on the table and looked at the pocket watch. Description, Luther said, "Usually, just guards come to search my lab, but today was my check-in with High Mage Val Luther. Lucky us." Description, Luther smiled at the watch. He whispered, "In case you're wondering, I keep my work on the serum in my dad's workshop since these searches happen randomly and frequently." Description, Luther said, "And my infinity pouch is already much more advanced than what I gave Volder today, but I'll give it up to them slowly." Description, Luther said, "I need to keep their attention focused on the infinity pouch until I can finalize my serum." Description, Luther sighed and said, "Maybe I'll even have to come up with another distraction, if I need more time to figure out how to test my serum safely." Description, Luther paused. He leaned back in his chair and looked up at the ceiling. He looked tired. Description, Luther said, "Whenever these searches happen, I always find myself wondering, but it'll be like a day I don't have to hide anymore." Description, Luther said, "I'm even hiding my true research from my parents." Description, Luther said, "My dad thinks that I'm just trying some things for fun in his lab because I want to keep my lab organized while I work on the infinity pouch." Description, Luther straightened up and looked down at the pocket watch. His violet eyes looked back at him in the reflection of the watch face. Description, Luther said, "My dad thinks that I'm just
Whoops.
Description, in a soft voice, Luther said, "I miss seeing the blue glow." Description, he said, I miss hearing you in my head. Description, Luther fell quiet, silence surrounding him. Description, he said, it feels weird not having your input and thoughts. Description, he glanced at Scarlet's name cards on the table. Luther said, I should go visit her to make sure she doesn't have any questions on the letter I sent her.
Good idea.
Description, the lab door opened and Luther's parents walked in. Description, Luther looked up and frowned when he saw the serious looks on Julius and Helena's faces. He put the watch in his pocket.
Uh-oh.
Description, Julius said, how was your check-in with High Mage Valor? Description, Luther said, good. Is something the matter, Dad? You and Mom look very tense. Description, Julius and Helena looked at each other. Julius said, Princess Riley just came and told us you were working on a memory deletion serum. Description, Luther took a deep breath. Description, Helena said, Princess Riley is really worried about you, Luther, and frankly we are too. Description, Julius pulled up a chair next to Luther and sat down. Helena stood stiffly by her husband with her lips pursed. YouTube, now, the info.
Okay, wait, so...
Description, Julius pulled up...
So, Riley would be...
Description,
Third...
Julius pulled up a chair next...
Wait. Blah. Riley would be 14. Yeah.
Description, Julius pulled up a chair next to Luther and sat down. Helena stood stiffly by her husband with her lips pursed. Description, Julius said, is Princess Riley telling us the truth? Have you been working on a memory deletion serum, Luther? Description, Luther paused before he nodded and said, yeah, I've been working on my serum in your workshop, Dad. Description, Helena looks hurt. She looked away from her son for a moment before she said, you told us you were just playing around to relax after you work on the pouch. I thought you wanted to spend more time with your dad. Vertical scroll bar.
Whoops.
Description, Luther paused before he nodded and said, yeah, I've been... Description, Helena looked... Description, Helena said, you lied to us, Luther. Description, Julius clasped his hands together and leaned forward towards Luther. He said, son, I want to understand why you felt the need to lie to us. Description, Luther lowered his gaze. He said, first, you would both consider a memory deletion serum dangerous. Description, Julius and Helena looked at each other with tense expressions. Helena said, well, can you blame us? It does sound like something dangerous. Description, Luther said, and then you would tell me to report my research to Vulgar so I wouldn't get in trouble. Description, Julius said, you should consider reporting your serum if you want to. Voriel. Description, Julius said, you should consider reporting your serum if you want to continue working on it. Luther. Vulgar made it clear this was your last chance after what happened with Model 1. Description, Julius said, you can't be caught doing something they don't approve of or they will lock you away. Description, Luther said, they can no, Dad. Description, Julius said, why not? Description, Julius said, I think Vulgar would like to own something like a memory deletion serum. They'll most likely let you work on this under their supervision.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Hey, where's the cake, by the way? The cake? Okay. Yep. Thanks. Alright, guys, sorry about that.
Description, Luther said, they can know because I plan to use it on Jenna's. Description, Julius shook his head. Helena covered her mouth as she reached for a chair and sat down. Description, Luther said, and if Janez knows I'm working on a memory deletion serum, he'll suspect that I want to use it on speaking volume 65%, 60 word.
Oh, whoops.
Description, Helena looks hurt. She looked away.
Okay. So, I apologize for that, guys. I forgot to turn the speech rate down. So, okay, let me go back and explain what happened. So, basically, so essentially what happened, when the pocket watch clicked open, when Luther took it out of the letter box, there were Valdorians and High Mage Val Elder, who came to inspect Luther's room and check on him and see how he was doing on that on the Infinity pouch. So he's holding back a little bit because he wants to continue on this serum deletion. So they didn't find anything. They found the letterbox, but nothing was inside. They took one of the pouches with them, because Luther said it was fine. And then, he read the letters, and he's thinking of going to see Scarlet to make sure that she's okay, make sure there's no other questions. And then Luther's parents came in and they basically found out that Luther was also working on a serum deletion, and they aren't very happy.
Description, Helena said, you lied to us, Luther. Description, Julius clasped his hands together and leaned forward towards Luther. He said, son, I want to understand why you felt the need to lie to us. Description, Luther lowered his gaze. My cue. Description, Luther lowered his gaze. He said, Description, Luther lowered his gaze. He said, first, you would both consider a memory deletion serum dangerous. Description, Julius and Helena looked at each other with tense messenger. Description, Luther said, Description, Julius and Helena looked at each other with tense expressions. Helena said, well, can you blame us? It does sound like something dangerous. Description, Luther said, and then you would tell me to report my research to Vulgar so I wouldn't get in trouble. Description, Julius said, you should consider reporting your serum if you want to continue working on it. Luther. Mulder made it clear this was your last chance after what happened with Model 1. Description, Julius said, you can't be caught doing something they don't approve of or they will lock you away. Description, Luther said, they can no, Dad. Description, Julius said, why not? Description, Julius said, I think Mulder would like to own something like a memory deletion serum. They'll most likely let you work on this under their supervision. Description, Luther said, they can no because I plan to use it on Jenna's. Description, Julius shook his head. Helena covered her mouth as she reached for a chair and sat down. Description, Luther said, and if Janez knows I'm working on a memory deletion serum, he'll suspect that I want to use it on him. Description, Julius said, why do you want to use a memory deletion serum on King Janez, son? Description, Luther said, I want to delete Janez's hatred for humans. Description, Luther said, I want to delete Janez's hatred for human. Description, Helena reached over and touched Luther's hand. She said, don't do it. Description, Helena shook her head and said, this is not your fight, Luther. Let your dad handle Mulder. Description, Luther sighed. He said, I went to visit the house the Stones used to live in. Description, a frustrated expression spread across Julius' face. He said, I already spoke with King Janez. Like I thought, the people on the list Dr. Fulger gave me were just relocated to another quarantine zone. Description, Julius said, King Janez promised me that no humans are secretly getting killed off. Description, Luther looks equally frustrated. He said, Dad, I know the truth is hard for you to accept. Description, Helena furrowed her brows. In a nervous tone, she said, Luther, ellipsis, this is your father you're talking to. Please stop before you say something you'll regret. Description, Luther eyed his father and said, you put in so much effort to maintain peace with Mulder, that I know it's hard for you to admit that Janez is secretly killing humans even when it's right before your eyes, Dad. Description, Luther said, because admitting this will mean that Janez tricked you this whole time and everything you've been doing is for nothing. Description, Helena pressed a hand against her chest and said, Luther. Description, Helena looks greatly troubled as she glanced at the pained expression on her husband's face. Helena said, Description, Helena looks greatly troubled as she glanced at the pained expression on her husband's face. Helena said, how do you know for sure that King Janez is lying to your father? How do you know? Description, Luther said, when I used to hang out with Dylan and Nadia Stone, I know they had a secret hiding spot inside one of the vents in their house. Description, he said, they kept their most favorite things, like toys or things they didn't want their parents to know about, inside that vent. Description, Luther said, I checked that vent and their stuff was still there. If Dylan and Nadia's family had moved willingly out of our quarantine zone, then why would they leave behind their favorite things? Description, Julius rubbed one thumb with the other. Description, Helena looked at her husband before saying, you said there were things in their secret hiding spot that their parents didn't know about, ellipsis. Description, Helena said, so maybe Dylan and Nadia left them behind when they moved so they wouldn't get in trouble or something with their parents. Description, Julius nodded and said, you don't have any concrete proof that King Janez is lying, son. Description, Luther sighed again. Description, Luther sighed again. He looked at his parents and said, Mom, Dad, are you going to report me to Janez for developing my memory deletion serum? Description, Julius and Helena both shook their heads without hesitation. Description, Julius.
People stop
Julius and
messaging
Helena
me,
both
please.
shook their heads without hesitation. Julius said, no, son, but your mother and I want you to stop working on it. Description, Julius said, there are some things you shouldn't erase, Luther, and King Janez's memory is one of them. Description, Luther looked at his mom. He said, if my memory deletion serum works, it will also heal the pain of Ash's scar. Description, Helena looks divided for a moment. She wrung her hands together. Description, finally, she shook her head and said, I'm with your father on this one, Luther. If King Janez finds out you're working on something you're not supposed to. Description, Helena said, he'll take messenger.
Oh my gosh,
Description,
people,
Helena
stop,
said,
please.
He'll take you away from us or worse, ellipsis.
It's probably a group messenger thing, guys.
Description,
Can't really-
Luther lowered his gaze as his mom's voice cracked as she said, I can't lose you, Luther. I was so close to losing you during the Valdorian mage trials. Description, Helena covered her mouth and shook her head rapidly. She said, I just can't lose you. Description, Julius said, we think you should destroy the research you have in my workshop. You told Princess Riley about the memory deletion serum. Description, Julius said, she told us. She could tell her father too. Description, Luther said, Riley won't do that. She doesn't want me to work on the serum so she told you to, but she won't do anything that will hurt me.
Wait,
Description,
what?
Luther said, Riley won't do that. She doesn't want me to work on the serum so she told you to, but she won't do anything that will hurt me. Description, with a pleading look on his face, Julius said, as your father, I beg you to let me handle Mulder. Description, Luther said, no amount of talking is going to save us from Mulder, Dad. Description, Julius looks crestfallen. Helena took her husband's hands in hers. Description, Luther said, and this memory deletion serum might be the closest I've gotten to stopping Janez. Description, Luther said, you and Mom can believe what you want. You can even destroy all the work I've done in your workshop, but unless you lock me into a room and bind my hands together. Description, Luther got up and said, I'll continue to work on this serum because I think it's the only chance we have. Description, Luther squeezed his hands together and looked at his parents. Description, he said, Mom, Dad, please, I could use your support. Description, Julius and Helena looked torn. They glanced at each other. Description, in a pained tone, Julius said, Son, ellipsis. Description, Helena took her husband's hand and squeezed it. Description, Julius said, Son, it's too dangerous. And description, Julius shook his head and said, It isn't right. All this hiding in secrecy and lies, Luther, it isn't right. Description, Luther swallowed hard. He walked description, Luther swallowed hard. He walked past his parents. Description, worry on her face, Helena said, Messenger, description, worry on her face, Helena said, Where are you going, Luther?
A place.
Description, Luther said, To see Scarlet. Description, Luther left the lab. He leaned against a closed door behind him and took a deep breath. Description, his parents can be heard talking on the inside. Description, Helena said, What do we do, Julius? Should we go destroy his research? Description, Julius said, We're going to lose our son if we do. Description, Luther sighed. He murmured, I'm sorry I make things so hard for you, Mom and Dad. Description, Helena sounded desperate. She said, Then what should we do? Why isn't there some guide that can just tell us what to do? Description, Messenger. Description, Julius said, I don't know what to do either. All I know is we shouldn't do something rash that would make Luther hate us. Let's give him some time to cool down and we can all sit down and have another discussion. Description, in a defeated tone, Helena said, Right. Yeah, I hope we can get through to him. Description, Helena said, Do you think Luther's right about what King Janus did to the stones? Do you think Walder is secretly killing off humans now? Description, Julius said, I think Luther believes what he says is true. Description, Luther frowned and took a deep breath. Description, Helena sighed loudly and said, I wonder if Scarlet has been a bad influence on Luther.
No.
Description, Luther dug a nail into his palm. Description, Helena said, maybe she's filling his head with ideas about how wonderful life is outside these walls or something. Description, Helena said, Don't hate me for saying this, dear, but more and more I find myself not looking forward to life outside these walls. Description, Luther looked over his shoulder at the door. Description, his mother continued to say, People outside these walls hate humans. Who knows how long that animosity will take to heal. Description, Julius said, When we get out of here, there will be a lot of work to do for sure. Description, Helena said, All I want is a safe place for my children to grow up in, whether they be outside of these walls, ellipsis, or in it. Description, Luther walked away from the door. As he walked down the hallway, he said, Levidas Ultimus, like air. Description, Luther turned into wind and blew through the vents in the house. Messenger, Description, Luther turned into wind and blew through the vents in the house, flying out and across the quarantine zone until he reached the armor shop.
That's so cool.
Description, Scarlet is busy cleaning armor. Description, Luther reformed inside the room by the door. He knocked gently on the door from the inside. Description, Scarlet lifted her head. Her shoes started glowing red. Who's there? Description, Luther said, It's me, Scarlet. Description, a look of surprise crossed Scarlet's face, followed by a big grin. Luther, what are you doing here? Description, Luther said, I came to see if you had any questions regarding the letter I sent you. Description, Scarlet covered her mouth. Can you read my mind? Description, Luther arched his brow. He said, So you did have questions? Why didn't you say that in your letter or come and see me? Ellipsis, well, ellipsis, I don't want to bother you any more than I have. Description, Luther smiled and said, You haven't bothered me, Scarlet. Description, Scarlet took a deep breath and smiled, her expression bright and cheery. System message, Scarlet is waiting. Scarlet, can you tell Luther that I miss him? One of 4 Luther just had a bad conversation with him. What was that thing with Dylan and Nadia Stone about? Is Janet saying nothing? Luther just had a bad conversation with his parents. 2 of 4 response. Scarlet, can you tell Luther that I miss him? 1 of 4 responses. Button. Luther just had a bad conversation with his parents. 2 of 4 response. Scarlet, can you tell Luther that I miss him?
I'll do that one
Scarlet,
because I
can
don't
you
want
tell
to
Luther that I
over.
miss him? Responded, Scarlet, can you tell Luther that I miss him? Description, Scarlet Description, Scarlet nodded with a smile. Your counterpart misses you, Luther. Description, Luther took out the pocket watch. Description, he smiled and said, Thanks for letting me know what you're thinking. Hey, Luther. Did Princess Riley agree to help you with your serum? Description, Luther took a deep breath. He said, Description, Luther took a deep breath. He said, No, she's completely traumatized by Alvin taking over her mind on the Sovereign Eye. Description, Luther said, I don't blame her for not wanting to help me with my serum. Description, Scarlet looks utterly disappointed. So what are you going to do now? Description, Luther said, I'll think of something. Luther, you're still not willing to test your serum on Janus unless you know it's safe. Description, Luther said, That's the plan. I will not. Description, Luther said, That's the plan. I will not let Janus or anyone else end up like Lieutenant Zone Valsari because of something I made. Description, Luther said, What kind of person would I be if I willingly risk someone's life for my goals? Description, Scarlet swallowed hard. Your serum could help save all humans, though, ellipsis. Description, Luther-eyed Scarlet. Description,
let's do that.
Luther-eyed Scarlet before shaking his head. He said, I'm not here to talk about my serum. What questions did you have about my letter? Description, Scarlet paused. She squeezed her hands into fists. Luther, can I help you submit your memory deletion serum to the Master's Council, then? Description, Luther's eyes widened. My brother is a gold rank mage. He may get expelled soon, ellipsis, but he's still a gold right now. If I submit your proposal under Soul's name, like you were planning with Oliver, then it'll get review priority with the council. Description, Luther-eyed Scarlet, a puzzled look on his face. He said, wouldn't your brother be very angry with you if he finds out you're helping me? I've looked into the submission process before and I know that the Master's Council responds to a proposal with a letter. If I get that letter sent to my home in Ravenswood where my dad lives, my brother won't ever see it. Soul has a rocky relationship with my dad so he barely goes back there. Description, the room fell silent as Luther paused for a long moment. Scarlet had a look of anticipation on her face. Description, Luther said, thank you for the generous offer, Scarlet, but I don't want to ask you to lie to your brother for me. Description, Scarlet took a deep breath. I don't like lying to my brother, but this is for a good cause. Your serum could mean freedom for all the humans that have been wrongfully quarantined. Description, Luther paused. He looked outside the window of the armor room with the quarantine zone wall. Description, Luther said, hiding the initial response letter from your brother might work, but if the council approves my proposal, it will only get messier for you. Description, Luther said, my plan was to have Oliver work with the council in my place. I don't think your brother would be willing to do that. Description, Scarlet lowered her head with a sigh. Well, ellipsis, he might be willing to help if he gets credit for your serum. I hate to ask you this, Luther, but will you be willing to give the credit of your memory deletion serum to my brother? Description, Luther looked back at Scarlet. Without hesitation, he said, of course. Credit doesn't matter to me. Description, Scarlet squeezed her hands together. Though it makes me sad that people would never know it was you who did something so amazing. But I just don't know if my brother would be willing to help any other way. Description, Luther said, it's okay, Scarlet. The credit is not important, but... Description, Luther dug a nail into his palm. Description, Luther said, if you help me with this, I could see it hurting your relationship with Soul if he ever found out. Description, Luther said, and I know how much he means to you. I just don't want your life. Description, do you realize how much?
Whoops.
Description, Scarlet's expression softened. Description, Luther said, and I know how much he means to you. I just don't want your life to become more difficult because of me. Description,
Let's see, where
Luther
was it?
said, if you help me with this, I could see it hurting your relationship with Soul if he ever found out.
Okay,
Description,
we're okay, we're okay.
description, Scarlet's expression softened. She swallowed hard. Do you realize how much you've helped me? I wouldn't have known about the Flame Master spell if it weren't for you. Description, Luther said, I'm sure you would have found a way to defeat a ruby dragon on your own. Maybe, ellipsis, but you made me feel supported. And, ellipsis, I just want to return the favor in some way. And, ellipsis, I just want to return the favor in some way. So, please, Luther, ellipsis. Let me help you. Description, Scarlet lowered her head, her face bright red. Description, Luther looked out at the quarantine zone walls again. After... Description,
Excuse me.
Luther looked out at the quarantine zone walls again. After a moment, he said, let me think about it, Scarlet. Description, Scarlet furrowed her brows. Sure, ellipsis, just let me know. Description, Scarlet paused, her head still lowered. So, Luther, how are you doing in this timeline? Description, Luther is quiet. Description, he said, I'm making do. Description, Scarlet listened to the tired tone of Luther's voice, a worried look on her face. And how are you feeling? Have you been healthy? Description, Luther looked back at Scarlet and said, yeah, other than the memory loss of the last 6 years, I've felt fine otherwise. Why do you ask? I remember you told me that Alvin put Rule Breaker Chrono Gem inside of you. Description, Luther sighed and said, oh, that. Description, Luther sighed and said, have you
I don't know why I hit that.
Have you felt any ill effects from it? Description, Luther shook his head and said, none that I've noticed. At this point, I have no proof an actual rule breaker is inside of me, other than Alvin's words. Description, Luther said, once I get out of here, I plan to ask the Masters and First Mage Ezra to examine me. So you're still planning to find First Mage Ezra? Description, Luther said, yeah. He's the one that probably knows the most about Alvin. The First Mage is our best chance at defeating him. Description, Scarlet shivered. But didn't Alvin say that the First Mage does things to Timecrest's, ellipsis? Description, Luther said, Alvin said that First Mage Ezra takes away the thoughts and emotions of Timecrests who inherit Alvin's time magic. Description, Luther said, it's the First Mage's way of killing a Timecrest. Leaving the body alive while killing the mind is the First Mage's way of circumventing the counterpart's ability to revive them. Description, Luther shrugged and said, but Alvin said a lot of things. Just be careful, Luther, ellipsis. Description, the worry was obvious in both Scarlet's face and voice. Description, Luther eyed Scarlet. He said, if there is a chrono gem inside me, I wish I could give it to you, Scarlet. Description, Luther said, you're the Timecrest now. If the First Mage is going to come after a Timecrest, it's going to be you. First Mage Ezra only attacks a Timecrest that has inherited Alvin's time magic, right? Description, Luther said, sure, if we believe what Alvin says. How does one inherit Alvin's time magic? Description, Luther said, Alvin said he'll give me his magic if I go back to my original timeline and join him.
Ew.
Description, Luther paused and said, he said he doesn't plan to give you his time magic. Description, Scarlet smiled. That's good then. You'll be safe as long as you stay in this timeline and we don't even have to worry about me since Alvin doesn't plan to give me any time magic. Description, Luther sighed and said, but I do worry about you and I hate that we only have Alvin's words to go on. Description, Scarlet blushed. Thanks for worrying about me, Luther. Description, Luther said, I think the only thing that will put my mind at ease is talking to First Mage Ezra myself. Description, Scarlet nodded. Well, ellipsis, I hope you'll let me help you in some way with that. Description, Luther nodded. He said, description, Luther nodded. He said, thanks, Scarlet. Description, Luther looked down at the pocket watch and said, hey, ellipsis. Description, he said, how are you doing in this timeline? System mess, I'm enjoying getting to know Scarlet. I'm glad I turned her into a Timecrest. 1 of 3 response, I still miss the timeline I came from, but I'm making do. 2 of 3, I totally forgot the chrono gem was inside of Luther. Remind me of what Alvin said again. 3 of 3 I'm enjoying getting to know Scarlet. I'm glad I turned her into a Timecrest. 1 of 3 responses. Button. I still miss the timeline I came from, but I'm making do. 2 of I'm enjoying getting to know Scarlet.
Yeah.
Description, Scarlet blushed. T thank you. Description, Luther said, what did my
T,
counterpart
thank
say?
you.
Your counterpart is enjoying getting to know me. Description, Luther smiled and said, I'm not surprised. Description, Scarlet's blush deepened. Description, Luther said, hey, Scarlet, I could use your help on something. Description, Scarlet's face brightened. Sure thing, how can I help, Luther? Description, Luther said, I remember you could sense Patora's bare feet through her Voldorian disguise. I'm hoping you can help me find her. Description, Luther said, I want to know how Patora is getting in and out of the quarantine zone. Description, Scarlet looks surprised. Do you think Patora is still around? Description, Luther said, probably. She was ordered by her master to warn you to stop using the watch. Description, Luther held up the watch and said, but we haven't stopped. If her master is truly concerned, Patora should at least still be around to keep eyes on the watch. Okay, I'll see if she's nearby. Description, Scarlet extended her sensory radius out of the armor room. She extended her radius and then extended it some more. Description, Scarlet began to shiver a little. Description, Luther narrowed his eyes, a concerned look on his face. He said, Scarlet, are you okay? You're not using too much of your body heat, are you? I'm fine, just a little more and maybe I can find her. Description, Luther frowned as Scarlet continued to shiver. Description, Luther said, can I lend you my body heat somehow? Description, Scarlet shook her head and said, the only spell I have to borrow other people's heat is Fatal Fever, ellipsis, but that spell will end up blowing up this armor shop with us in it. Description, Scarlet wrapped her arms around herself. Description, Luther said, hey, Scarlet, that's enough. You're using too much of your heat, aren't you? I'm fine. Please let me help, Luther. Besides, your counterpart can revive me if I use up all my heat. System message, Scarlet is waiting. Yeah, I got your back, Scarlet. Go all out if you need. I want to help Luther too. 1 of 3 I think you should stop, Scarlet. I bet Luther's worried about at you. 2 of 3, say nothing. Yeah, I got your back, Scarlet. Go all out. 808 back, button.
Okay.
Back, new, load, settings.
Let's
button.
save this.
If you are logged into game set. Last save game.
Save game.
Save.
Save.
Okay.
Okay.
If music follows cursor is enabled, the music
Go
plays.
back.
Continue. Load complete. New game.
Come on.
Continue.
There we go.
Continue. Say nothing.
Ah.
3. Yeah, I got your back.
Let's do that one.
Yeah, I got your back, Scarlet. Description, Scarlet's teeth began to chatter. Why, your counterpart will revive me, so just let us help you. YouTube. Now. Description, Luther hugged Scarlet. He said, stop, Scarlet. Description, Scarlet gasped as she felt Luther's arms around her. Description, her nose touched his chest. She could hear his heartbeat and smell the fresh scent of his clothes. Description, Luther said, I don't want you to suffer because of me. Description, Scarlet felt her own heart beating faster. Her shoes stopped glowing red as she turned off her spell. Description, Scarlet rubbed her thumbs against her other fingers, but let both hands hang at her sides. Description, Luther said, so what questions did you have for me regarding my letter? Oh, they're nothing important. I just wanted to know how the dragon hunter became interested in fire magic and why he hunted dragons. Description, Luther said, Riley didn't any have background on the dragon hunter, but I suspect he probably hunted dragons because he hated them or he enjoyed it and wanted people to like him. But he sounds so strong. Do you think he needed people to like him? Description, Luther's glance fell on the top of Scarlet's head. He quickly looked away and cleared his throat. Description, Luther said, dragons are rare and valuable so not many people shared secrets on how to slay them, unlike this guy. Description, Luther said, he shared his knowledge on ruby dragons openly. Description, Luther said, maybe he became the best so he could share his knowledge with people who enjoy doing what he did, and make a few friends along the way. Description, Luther said, because it's nice to be around people that get you, and feel supported even if you're strong. Description, Scarlet smiled as she listened to Luther's heartbeat. Yeah, I get that. It's nice to feel supported. Description, Scarlet paused. Luther, did you ever find out what Dr. Fulger's list was about? Description, Luther is quiet. After a moment, he said, Dr. Fulger claims Janus is killing humans from the quarantine zone in secret. What? Why? Are humans... What? Why? Are humans causing trouble inside the quarantine zone?
This is complicated.
Description, Luther said, no, but some Baldorians are getting tired of quarantine zones and want to see humans punished more. I think Janus agreed to their demands. Description, Scarlet squeezed her hands into fists. If they are getting tired of quarantine zones, then why don't they set the humans free instead of killing innocent people? That's just not right. What if Janus comes after your family one day, Luther? Description, Luther said, I know he'll come after us. Description, Scarlet fell silent. System message, Scarlet is waiting. Humans are being secretly killed off? That's horrible. Who are the people on the list again? 1 of 4 I just want to say, I support you both. 2 of 4 I wish I was there with you both. 3 of, say nothing. I just want to say, I support you both. 2 of 4 responses. Button.
Let's do that
Just want
one.
to say. Respond. Description, Scarlet smiled a little. Your counterpart supports us both, Luther. Description, Scarlet paused. I support you both too. Description, Luther smiled and said, same here. I support you both. Description, Luther continued to hug Scarlet until she stopped shivering. Description, he stepped away from her and said, are you okay now, Scarlet? Yeah, much better. I'll be able to try again soon. Description, Luther said, I don't know if this is a good idea anymore. I want to try again, Luther, ellipsis. Please? Description, Scarlet sounded like she had a lump stuck in her throat. Janus is secretly killing humans. We need... Description, Janus is secretly killing humans. We need to keep trying to get you out of here so you can go talk to the masters and finish your serum, Luther. Description, Luther paused. After a moment, he said, thanks for believing me right away about Janus, Scarlet. Of course. If
Whoops.
course. If Janus can go as far as spreading a disease that kills his own people, I believe he's capable of moving on to killing innocent humans. Just give me a moment and I can try to sense for Pitor again. Description, Luther sighed. He said, promise me you won't overdo it. I won't. Instead of trying to stretch my sensory radius from inside here, maybe I can walk around the quarantine zone and cover more ground that way. Description, Luther said, you shouldn't have to. If Pitor wants to spy on us, then she has to be near enough to do that. Description, Luther glanced outside the window of the armor room. He said, she asked you a lot of questions about your powers when she visited, right? Yeah, ellipsis, she did. Description, Luther said, so maybe she's keeping her feet off the ground in case you try to sense for her. That's
Ah.
very possible, ellipsis. Description, Scarlet furrowed her brows. Do you think she learned how to fly? She knows I can't sense anything flying through the air. Description, Luther said, possible too, but a flying Baldorian guard would stand out here. Description, Scarlet paused before she chuckled. Yeah, you got a point there. Description, Luther said, let me scout the nearby area for any guards that might have their feet up off the ground. Description, Scarlet nodded. In an enthusiastic tone she said, good idea, then I can focus my body heat in one direction instead of spreading it all around. Description, Luther put the watch in his pocket and said, let's just hope Pitor is not disguised as a tree or something. I'll be right back. Levidas Ultimus, like air. Description, Luther flew out of the armor room and around the surrounding area. Description, he came back and reformed in front of Scarlet. Luther said, there's a guard sitting on one of the tables near here with their feet up on the bench. Okay, I know the tables you're talking about. Description, Luther said, another guard is standing on the balcony of a nearby house. The balcony nearest to the wall or the one next to it? Description, Luther said, nearest to the wall. Description, Luther said, another guard is up on a bridge connecting 2 houses together. Oh, I don't think I've sensed that bridge before. You'll have to turn me in the direction of the bridge once we get to that one. But let me start with the guard sitting on the tables. Do you remember which table you sensed the guard on? Description, Luther said, the middle table of the row nearest to this armor shop. Description, Scarlet extended her sensory radius in the direction of the middle table outside the armor room. Her body... Description, Scarlet extended her sensory radius in the direction of the middle table outside the armor room. Her body heat traveled up the bench of the middle table until she sensed the guard's feet. Description, Scarlet gasped. Luther, the guard on the table has bare feet. Description, Scarlet covered her mouth. Wow, I wasn't expecting it to be this easy, ellipsis. Description, Luther smiled and said, good job, Scarlet. Description, Scarlet beamed. Pitora is near us, just like you said. What are you going to do now? Description, Luther said, I'm going to go talk to her. I can be direct now that I know she's not a real Baldorian guard. What if she tries to run? Description, Luther said, I hope she does. I hope to force her to make some sort of move because I can follow her with my liked air spell unnoticed. Description, Luther said, maybe I'll even get to see for myself how she gets in and out of this quarantine zone. Oh, I see. Description, Scarlet clapped her hands together. Good luck, Luther. Description, Luther said, Levidas Ultimus, like air. Description, Scarlet smiled as she felt wind lift strands of her hair. Luther flew out of the armor shop and appeared in front of the guard sitting on the table. Description, the guard jolted backwards when Luther appeared. Description, Luther said, hey, Atora, I know it's you. Description, the Valdorian guard jumped off the table and walked away. Description, Luther said, Levidas Ultimus, like air. Description, Luther followed the Valdorian guard through the quarantine zone, past another group of guards, until they came to a remote area by the wall. Description, the Valdorian guard stopped next to the wall and Luther reformed. He said, I know it's you, Atora. Description, the armor of the Valdorian guard began to shimmer and fade away, revealing Patora underneath. Description, today, Atora's hair is red like Scarlet's and she's wearing overalls like Scarlet's work uniform. Description, Atora said, I'm not supposed to talk to you. Master only wanted me to keep an eye on you and Scarlet. Description, Luther arched his brow as he heard Patora's defiant tone. She even had a little smile on her face. Description, Luther paused. After a moment, he smiled at Patora and said, good for you, Atora. Description, Atora's eyes widened. Description, Luther said, I'm glad you're doing what you want rather than what your master ordered. Description, Atora swallowed hard. After a moment, her little smile faded as she said, it's all useless. I'll never have the life I want. Description, her hair changed from red to an ombre purple, her overalls into a blue cloak. Twitter, now, at. Description, Luther paused again. He said, your hair and outfit just a moment ago reminded me of Scarlet. Do you want a life like Scarlet's, Atora? Description, Atora sighed and said, I'll like Scarlet. She's a nice person and she has a chance at life unlike you and me, Luther Timecrest. Description, Atora said, I'll never get the life I want and you can't resist the cursed watch. Description, Luther narrowed his eyes at Patora. Description, Atora said, but Scarlet has a chance. She would have kept the watch closed if you had just stayed out of her life. Description, Luther frowned and said, Scarlet would have died without the watch. Description, Atora said, or did having the watch put her in danger in the first place? Description, Atora said, that watch is dangerous. Description, Luther said, I know Crow knows Timecrest is bad news, but he's not. YouTube. No.
People.
Description, Luther
Jeez.
said, I know Crow knows Timecrest is bad news, but he's not the only one on the other side of the pocket watch. Description, Luther said, this other person is why I keep the watch open. Description, in a monotone voice, Atora said, like I said, it's useless for both you and me. Description, Atora said, Luther, if you care for her, tell her to forget about the watch and leave her alone. She doesn't need the watch like you.
What does she mean?
Description, Luther lowered his gaze and dug a nail into his palm. Description, he took a deep breath and said, show me how you get in and out of this quarantine zone, Atora. Description, Luther said, the only thing bad about the watch is its ties to Crow Nose. I want to fight him, but first I need to get out of here. Description, Luther said, he's our common enemy, right, Atora? Description, Atora said, Crow Nose is my master's enemy, but I know from my master that he is a bad man. Description, Luther said, why doesn't your master do something more to stop Crow Nose? Why is it that you're just ordered to watch us? Description, Atora said, master has lost hope in defeating Crow Nose. Description, Luther swallowed hard. Description, Atora said, just because we are both trapped, Luther, doesn't mean you can't set Scarlet free. Description, Atora said, after watching you and watching her, I believe only her. Garage band, now, garage. Description,
That was
Atora
weird.
said, after watching you and watching her, I believe only her awaits her the closer she gets to you. Description, Atora said, you made a mistake visiting her. Description, Atora shook her head and said, she would be happier and safer without you or that watch in her life, Luther.
Why?
Description, Luther squeezed his hands into fists. Description, Luther said, hey, Atora, I assume you don't get to live the life you want because you're tied to your master. Description, Luther, YouTube. Description, Luther said, but aren't you speaking with me against your master's wishes right now? Description, Atora's eyes widened. Description, Luther said, you know, your voice sounds more lively today than when I first met you. Description, Atora swallowed hard and grabbed her throat with one hand. Description, Luther said, so maybe it's not hopeless yet, Atora, for either of us. I know I haven't lost hope yet. Description, Luther said, and while your master may have given up hope on defeating Crow Nose, I haven't. Description, Luther said, and if I can defeat Crow Nose, then Scarlet will be safe and the watch won't be a danger anymore. Description, Luther said, so please, help me get out of this quarantine zone so I can do something about Crow Nose. Description, in a sad tone, she said, no, it's all useless. I can help you, Luther.
Why?
Description, Atora backed into the quarantine zone wall as she said, because I'm not really here. Description, Luther's eyes widened as Pitora's body sunk into the wall like it was a soft cushion. Description, Luther said, Levidas Ultimus, like air. Description, Luther soared towards the wall, but the same wall Pitora disappeared into blocked Luther. Description, Luther reformed in front of the wall and pressed his hands against the solid wall. Luther. Description, Luther looked over his shoulder, surprised to see Scarlet coming up behind him. Description, Luther swallowed hard and said, What are you doing here, Scarlet? I decided to follow Pitor too when she started walking away. Description, Scarlet's shoes are glowing red. Where did she go all of a sudden, Luther? Description, Luther wiped his hand across the solid quarantine zone wall before stepping away. He said, She just disappeared into the wall. Description, Scarlet gasped, covering her mouth. How is that possible? The quarantine zone wall is one of the strongest anti-magic barriers I know of. Description, Luther stared at the wall.
Why did the music pause? I don't like that.
Description, he said, whoever Pitora is, whoever her master is, must be very powerful if she could just pass through the quarantine wall like that.
I don't like this.
What did you and Pitor talk about?
Okay, I'm very curious. I wonder if Pitora is actually the bad person here. Or if Alvin and Pitora are working together.
Description, Luther sighed. He said, She told me her master lost hope in defeating Alvin. Description, in a quiet tone, Luther said, Someone who is strong enough to pass through the quarantine zone wall has lost hope against Alvin. Description, Scarlet furrowed her brows. Description, without looking at Scarlet, Luther said, Hey, Scarlet, thanks for your help today. I should get going. Wait, Luther, ellipsis, you sound off, ellipsis. Did something else happen between you and Pitora? Did she say something about me? Description, Luther paused. After a moment, he said, Nothing else. See you later, Scarlet. System message, Scarlet is waiting. Pitora said you'll be happier and safer without Luther and me. One-of-one responses. Pitora said you'll be happier and safer without Luther and me. Response, that's not true. Description, Luther eyed Scarlet. He said, What's not true? Our counterpart just told me Pitora said I'd be happier and safer without you or our counterpart. Description, Luther's eyes widened as Scarlet said That's not true. System message, Scarlet is waiting. Yay, I like the sound of our counterpart. 1 of 4 responses. Nice, Scarlet. I think Luther really needs to hear this from you. 2 of 4 response. To be honest, I think Soul will make you unhappier and unsafer than Luther ever could. 3 of 4 responses. That's not true. Description, Luther's eyes widened as Scarlet said Character, word, as Scott said, are, open, oh, you, are, period, closing double quotation, word, that's not true. System mess, yay, I like the sound of our counterpart. 1 of 4 responses.
I'll do that.
Yay, I like this. Response, description, Scarlet smiled, looking very happy. It was your idea. You told me a long time back that you felt like a counterpart to both Luther and I. I've felt so lonely ever since my brother became a gold-ranked mage. Because of you and our counterpart, ellipsis, I feel so much less lonely now. Description, Scarlet's face started turning red as she spoke. So how can what Pitor said be true when I feel happier that I have you and our counterpart in my life? Description, Luther said, I'm also concerned about your safety. Our counterpart saved me twice now. I'm safer than I'll ever be because, even if I die, our counterpart can just revive me. I have more concern for your safety, so how can what Pitor...
Ah! Whoa, there was an attitude note there.
Description, Scarlet's face started turning red as she spoke. So how can what Pitor said be true when I feel happier that I have you and our counterpart in my life? Description, Luther said, I'm also concerned about your safety. Our counterpart saved me twice now. I'm safer than I'll ever be because, even if I die, our counterpart can just revive me. I have more concern for your safety, Luther, now that you're no longer a Timecrest, than I do for mine. Doesn't that make sense to you? Description, Luther looked at Scarlet. He sighed while shaking his head, but he was also smiling. Description, Luther said, will you let me help you clean armor, Scarlet? Description, Scarlet looks confused. Huh, you want to help me, ellipsis, clean armor? Description, Luther said, well, yeah, I took up a bunch of your time today so I would feel better if I can help you catch up on your work. Description, Luther said, besides, the more armor I clean, the more time you will have to practice Flame Master. Description, Scarlet took a moment to absorb Luther's words before a big smile spread across her face. That would be so helpful, Luther. But, I have one condition before I let you help me. Description, Scarlet paused. In a firm tone, she said, let me submit your proposal. Description, Luther sighed and said, I was afraid you'd say that.
I was too.
Description, Scarlet furrowed her brows. I don't understand the hesitation, Luther. Now that Petor is a dead end too, do you have any other plans? Description, Luther said, I'll think of something else. System message, Scarlet is waiting. Oh, it's so sweet to see you two helping each other out like this. One of four So, Petora also said she's not really here. What do you both think that's about? 2 of 4 responses. Button. I did save you, Scarlet, but Petor put some doubt in my mind too. She said maybe you wouldn't have been in danger if not for the watch. So, oh, it's so sweet to see you too. So, Petora also said she's not really here. Petora also said she's not really here. What do you both think? Description, Scarlet looks confused. Our counterpart wants to know what we think about Petora saying that she's not really here. When did she say that, Luther? Description, Luther said, when Petora disappeared into the wall. She said that it was hopeless, that she can't help, because she's not really here. That sounds like a really sad thing to say. Description, Luther nodded. He said, she sounded sad too when she said it.
What does that mean, though?
Description, Luther said, I don't know for sure what she means, but I suspect it has to do with her master. Description, Luther said, maybe her master's control over her makes her feel like she's not really her own person. Description, Luther shook his head and said, I don't know. I'm just guessing, of course. Description, Scarlet paused. So, Luther, I'm not willing to let this go. Let me help you submit your proposal. We can at least get the initial response from the council on your proposal and go from there. Description, Luther looked at the determined look on Scarlet's face before he tilted his head and glanced upwards at the quarantine zone wall towering over him. Description, after a moment, he said, what if they tell me no? Is that why you're hesitating? You're afraid the masters will reject your proposal? Description, Luther said, I know it's silly. Hesitating when I finally have someone who's willing to help give me what I want. Description, Luther said, but Oliver, Riley, my parents, ellipsis, they all think what I'm doing is wrong. Description, Luther said, to me, the world outside these walls represent freedom and hope. But what if it's the same world? Luther, ellipsis. Luther, ellipsis. Description, Luther said, I know I'm being stupid right now. Luther, your fears are not stupid. But I'm sure you will find what you're looking for outside these walls. If anyone can do it, you can. Description, Luther eyed Scarlet, uncertainty on his face. And in the meantime, ellipsis. Description, Scarlet smiled. You have me. I support you. Description, for a moment, Luther looked emotional. I think the serum you are creating will help a lot of people if it can make Janus forget his hatred of Timecrests and humans. And I know I'm not the only one who will think this. You will find people that understand you outside these walls and I'm just the start. Description, Luther closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Description, he opened his eyes and looked at Scarlet for a long moment. The longer he looked at Scarlet, the more hopeful his expression became. Description, Luther said, okay, let's do it, Scarlet. Description, Scarlet squeezed her hands into fists, looking pumped. Okay, you'll let me submit your proposal? Description, Luther smiled and said, yeah, please help me submit my proposal. Description, in an energetic tone, she said, yes. Description, Scarlet paused. Yes? So, do you need more time to finish your proposal? Description, Luther said, it's ready. I finished it before I asked Oliver to help me. Description, Scarlet took a deep breath. So it's happening. Can you bring me your proposal? I'd like to submit it as soon as possible. Description, Luther took a deep breath. He reached inside his jacket pocket and pulled out a document. Description, Luther said, I have it here, but before you go, can you show me how you clean armor? Description, Luther said, I'd like to see your process so I don't end up ruining your reputation by doing a bad job. Description, Scarlet smiled. Of course, but can you come early tomorrow? I want to leave right now. I don't think I'll be able to concentrate on anything else until I submit your proposal. Description, Luther took another deep breath. He placed his proposal in Scarlet's hand and said, thank you for everything, Scarlet. No need to thank me, Luther. I want to do this. Description, Luther paused. He looked away and said, is it because you still feel guilty about the Voldorian mage trials? Description, Scarlet looks surprised. No, not at all. It's because I believe what you're doing is good, and very brave. Description, Luther looked back at Scarlet, his eyes wide. Janus wants to get rid of all humans. And I don't know anyone else besides you that would take on the king of the most powerful empire in Elysia. I just feel really happy to help with this one. So, I should actually thank
Okay,
you,
maybe that was
Luther,
part of the
ellipsis,
note or
for
something.
letting me help. Description, Luther looked at Scarlet thoughtfully, a smile on his face. Oh, Luther, can I hang on to the pocket watch? I don't know how long it'll take me to submit a proposal, but I'd like to update our counterpart afterwards. Description, Luther paused. He took the watch out of his pocket and looked down at his reflection. Description, Luther placed the watch into Scarlet's hand and said, I'm lucky you became a Timecrest, Scarlet. Description, Scarlet's mouth opened in surprise, her cheeks turning pink. Description, Luther said, see you tomorrow. Levidas Ultimus, like air. Description, he turned into wind and flew away before Scarlet could respond. Description, Scarlet stood quietly for a while, a smile on her face. Description, she brought the watch close to her face. Thanks so much for telling me what Petor said to Luther. Description, Scarlet hugged Luther's proposal to her chest, a determined look on her face. Okay, I'm going to tell the Voldorians I'm not feeling well again. Description, she cringed a little. I hope they don't suspect that I'm coming down with a Voldorian disease or something. Ellipsis. I'll report back to you once I submit Luther's proposal. So talk to you soon. System message, Scarlet is waiting. Okay, good luck. 1 of 4 response. What if the masters say no to Luther? 2 of 4. My life has been happier with you in it too. Scarlet, are you falling in love with Luther? Scarlet. 4 of. Okay, good luck. 1 of 4 responses. But okay, good luck. 1 of 4 responses. Thanks. Description, Scarlet closed the pocket watch.
You have reached the end of Timecrest 3, Chapter 13, Part 5. Please continue to Part 6. So that's it for today's video. If you guys have any more questions, please put them down in the comments below, or you may send them to info@TheTechPianoPlayerKid.com. You can also give me a text at 913-312-1325, and if you do not live in the United States, you can text me through WhatsApp and give me a call there as well. I also have a toll-free number that you can use to give me a call at 877-318-8775. Please also follow me and like my Facebook page, The Tech Piano Player Kid, and follow me on Twitter, tech_piano. And you can also join my discussion forum on my website where you can ask questions about technology and help to answer questions about technology for the blind and stuff like this by going to TheTechPianoPlayerKid.com and clicking on the discussion board page underneath the navigation bar menu where you can register for a free account and help to answer questions and ask questions if need to be. Please make sure that you get permission from your parents if you still need to do so before making an account, just to make sure that you're on the safe side and that you don't want to get in trouble because we don't want that to happen. And you can also subscribe to my monthly newsletter if you wish by going to my website, TheTechPianoPlayerKid.com. Again, if need to be, get permission from your parents just to be on the safe side. And you can unsubscribe at any time if you wish, and if you have any trouble with unsubscribing or creating an account or deleting your account, please let me know, and I will do my best to help you out. Anyway, that's it for today's video. God bless you all, and peace. The Tech Piano Player Kid is out. Thank you for watching today's video. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications, and leave a comment down below. For questions, please send an email to info@TheTechPianoPlayerKid.com. You can also give a call or text at 913-312-1325. And don't forget to like my Facebook page, The Tech Piano Player Kid, and follow me on Twitter, tech_piano. Black background with white text that reads The Tech Piano Player Kid displays on the screen with the same text written to the right in Braille, then fades to black.